Hey everyone, welcome back to My Movie Story. It's Brian here, your host, and we're here for another episode. If this is your first time on My Movie Story with us, welcome and thanks for checking us out. We're about 11 or 12 episodes into our show now, so it's going well. And if you've been watching us so far, you'll see that each episode is different because it's all about the guest and their films and the stories behind those films. Yeah, so my guest today is Bob Roitblat. He's based in the Chicago area of Illinois in America, and he's worked professionally as a medical doctor, a lawyer, and a hitman, but as a film and television actor. So just to reassure everyone there. And Bob has appeared in over 60 TV shows and feature films, often portraying a villain. And he's also been to federal prison 3 times, but as a speaker. So, again, he's worn many hats, but in the form of a speaker or a film and television actor. So I'm sure he's got lots of interesting stories there. And in real life, Bob is a serial entrepreneur and an innovator, and having started and led 12 different companies. And from a wireless internet company to a software training company to several medical imaging centers. So he's worn lots of different hats, lots of different experience in many areas. And sure, he'll have a lot to say on all of those topics, and you can check him out online. We'll get him to tell us a little bit about his speaking, and we can share the links to his speaking websites and YouTube channels and that sort of thing. But today we're talking about movies. So welcome, Bob, to My
Yes,
Movie Story. How are you?
I am wonderful. Happy to be here talking about my favorite subject. Well, my second favorite. I'm my favorite, but movies is my number two.
You're your favorite. Okay, excellent. Well, understandable. You're an interesting guy. You've done a lot in your time, so fantastic. And so yeah, obviously a lot of different experiences there, Bob. So can you tell us a little
Yes.
bit more about your background and what you're doing now? And yeah, tell us your story.
I grew up in a small town called Milwaukee, Wisconsin. It's about I don't know 110 kilometers north of Chicago.
Yep.
Small town. Very few people ever go to Hollywood. I always wanted to be a star when I started watching movies at a young age, but no one ever goes to Hollywood from Milwaukee. Then luckily I had a break. I met some people and got into the movie business in my 20s and actually ended up doing a whole bunch of television shows. It was really what I've always wanted to do. I always want to be a star, but I don't have the warm voice. I'm not the love interest. I'm not the hero of the story. But I got to hang out on movie sets and be in movies and TV shows. It was fun. And then after a while, I kind of got burned out, knowing that I wasn't going to be the next Tom Cruise or
Hmm.
Taylor Swift or whatever. So I eventually left the movie industry. And now I'm a professional speaker. So I still travel around. I still perform. It's just live on
Mm,
stage in front of usually business executives.
fantastic.
That's my
Yeah,
fun story.
absolutely. What a life story. And something that a lot of people would aspire to be able to even just be on a set and see how that all happens and everything. So can you mention maybe a few of the credits that you've had and that people might know or not know?
Yeah, I'd love to say I was in Cardinal or something made by you, but all the shows I was on were made either in the U.S. or in Canada. In the
Right.
Heat of the Night, Murder She Wrote, Dr. Quinn Medicine Woman, Walker Texas Ranger.
Wow.
Um, I've done movies with Farrah Fawcett, a movie called Small Sacrifices. I've done several low budget films.
Yep.
You know, things. I'm not real big famous. It's amazing how the movie business is really a pyramid, and most of the time we see the Russell Crowes at the top of the pyramid, but there's a
Mm.
whole lot of people further down at the base that
Mm.
work in the industry every day, work really hard, and you never hear of them. And I suppose since I was actually in the movie, there's my name's in the credits. I've
Yep.
even been a co-star of a television show, so I may be a little bit more known than other people. The TV shows I worked on, for example, had 120 people on the crew,
Wow.
and 5 of us or 10 of us have their names in the credits. The other
Right.
110 people work harder than we did. Most of them got paid less than we did, but they're the ones
Mm.
who are really making the movie.
Yeah. It's interesting how that works, and yeah, not always the credit's not always given to where it's due. And I guess we
Right.
see that all over the place, really, in different areas. But yeah, certainly some interesting experiences. I'm sure you've had
Mhm.
across all those different roles and TV shows and movies. And is there a particular experience or acting part that stands out for you as in being the most memorable or most enjoyable? Like what springs to mind?
I don't think your show is long enough for me to go through all of them, but let me give you an example. I'll
Sure.
give you two examples. One is, as a teenager, probably even younger than that, I watched a TV show called The Beverly Hillbillies.
Oh yeah. Yep.
Now, this may be before of your time.
Yes.
You maybe have seen him in reruns, but the guy who played Jethro, his name is Max Baer Jr. So I grew up watching Max Jethro on Beverly Hillbillies. I'm actually cast in a TV show called Murder, She Wrote.
Yep.
And the other guest star of the episode is Max Baer Jr.
Ah, there you
So
go.
I got to actually act with Max in a scene, and a dog. There was a dog in the scene too, but it was Max and I in a scene together, which was
Cool.
really cool. And then we went out to dinner afterwards. It's like, and people are paying me for this.
Yeah, well.
The other example that's really cool is I also grew up as a teenager watching a TV show called Three's Company.
Mm-hmm.
And if you remember the show, there was, the blonde, Suzanne Summers, but the dark-haired gal, her name is Joyce DeWitt. I happened to be at a director's weekend. So there's 30 directors sitting in a big circle. I kind of tuned out, but I hear Joyce's voice, and she has a very distinct voice.
Right.
Within a few hours, we were fast friends.
Fantastic.
I got a call from a friend of mine who was directing a made-for-TV movie, and I asked him. I go, "Hey, Chuck, did you get anybody to play the school teacher yet?" He said, "No. Who did you have in mind?" I said, "What do you think about Joyce DeWitt?" And he said, "That'd be great. Do you think we can get her?" And I said, "I don't know. Let me ask her. Hey, Joyce, do you want to be in my movie?" So, she gets on the phone with Chuck, the director. They have a conversation. Chuck calls her agent. The agent calls her. The agent goes, "Hey, I just got you a movie." And she said, "No, you didn't. Bob did." Now, 3 weeks later, her and I, and of course everybody else, are in San Diego filming this TV movie.
Wow.
So again, another gal that I had a crush on as a teenager, I'm suddenly in a movie with her. Now, she and I never had a scene together,
Right.
but at least we were both in town at the same time. And again, working with somebody that I grew up watching on TV.
That's very cool.
This is just amazing stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. And like not a bad way to make a few bucks. And yeah, this is the thing. We all grow up, watching TV shows and movies and be like, how cool would it be to meet that person and actually work with them? So being able to do something that very few people get to actually do, that's really commendable. And like you said, I'm sure there's plenty more stories. We could have a whole episode on those, but that's given us a good taste of what you've done, and now you've moved into sort of the public speaking sort of arena.
Yes.
And a couple of topics that you speak about, or like the certain audiences you might speak to.
I mostly speak on the intersection of innovation and strategy.
Right.
So I spend a lot of time talking about innovation, but you can't talk about innovation without a strategy to actually implement it. So this is maybe for your audience boring business topics, but it's fun. It's exciting to talk about, Flaming Hot Cheetos and Reese's Peanut Butter Cups and all these other fun innovations.
Yep.
So that's what I spend a lot of my time doing. Every once in a while, people actually have me come in and talk about presentation skills. Yep. So that's where I go back on my acting chops. Like, okay, this is how you would, act in a scene. So this is how you actually make a presentation. Right. We get kind of nerdy and talk about story structure. Yep. As a professional speaker, you want to tell good stories. So how do you become a storyteller? So I get to rekindle the old days of my filmmaking days.
Very cool. Very cool. So it's kind of interwoven with your background and all that, and it would really make the speaking events quite. I'm sure you've got some funny stories there, and makes it really interesting and relatable for people. And I mean, for myself, innovation and strategy, I'm really into that kind of stuff. So if it was just about that would be fine as well, I think, because I'm all about how can I take this idea and make it happen and all that. So that's really cool. Yeah. Fantastic.
So it comes down to I've just never grown up. I get to play with inventions and play with innovation and play with cool things. Yep. I often use Post-it notes and markers. I get to talk about movies and stories. Yeah. I'm just an old kid.
Yep, absolutely. And they say men never grow up, and it's true. Like we don't really do we? We all like our toys and talking about these fun things, and yeah, keeping each day fun and enjoyable. So yeah, it sounds great.
Right.
And well, it's great to have you on, Bob. And I know the films you've chosen are all quite diverse and interesting, and
Yeah.
they're iconic, and people might know the majority of them. Some of them might not have known or heard of some of them, depending on their age. So we have a really,
Mhm.
diverse audience here of different age groups, different genres of movie watchers. But the great thing about this show is each guest comes on and brings a different perspective on a
Yeah.
film that might be
Mhm.
well known or might not be well known, and we're exploring lots of different genres. So for anyone who is, if this is your first time here, make sure you go back and watch the other episodes, yeah, and you'll see lots of different diverse films here. And Bob's films are no
Yeah.
different. So let's get stuck into it then, Bob. So I'd be really keen to hear firstly about what you would consider to be your all-time favorite film, or at least one of your all-time favorite films. It's always a
Oh,
tough
that's
choice
easy.
for people, but I know when we connected, you were very clear on what that film was for
Oh,
you. So yeah,
without a doubt.
tell us all about it.
So, from my perspective, this is my opinion. The best movie ever made, directed by the best director who ever lived, and starring the best actor that ever lived, are all in the same movie called Seven Samurai.
Brilliant.
So Seven Samurai, in my opinion, is the best movie ever made. Absolutely. The star of the movie is a gentleman named Toshiro Mifune, who, again, in my opinion, was the best actor who's ever lived. And the director is Akira Kurosawa, again, the best director who's ever lived. So to me, there's no equivocation, no
Yeah,
debate. From my perspective, the best in all three of those categories.
absolutely. And having just watched it for the first time myself in preparation for this conversation, I was really just blown away by it, and considering the time where it came from, having not
Mhm.
watched Japanese films, or not many Japanese films myself, but yeah, it exceeded everything I thought it was going to be, and just yeah, it was incredible. So I guess for some of our viewers who may not be familiar with this film, can you tell us a little bit about it and what the sort of general setup is?
I will, but I need to ask you a question first, Brian.
Sure.
Did you read the subtitles or not?
I did.
Ah, see, I suggested you watch it the first time without even reading the subtitles, because I think you would have gotten the story even without the subtitles.
Oh yeah,
So if you
absolutely.
haven't yet seen it, the movie is set in the feudal Japan era when there were samurai,
Mm,
hence the name Seven Samurai. The gist of the story is there is a collection of, they're not really samurai. Let's be a little technical. A samurai actually works for a warlord, but these were all unemployed samurai, so technically they're ronin. So
mm,
they have no masters. They're going through the countryside, and a farmer asks them to do their farm a favor and help protect the farm against bandits.
yep.
So the story progresses as these two main samurai start to meet other unemployed samurai, the Ronin, and they get together, six of them, and then they meet another guy who claims to be a samurai, but he really isn't. He's actually the son of a farmer, but he aspires to be a samurai.
Yep.
And it becomes very important part of the story. So
Yes.
these seven guys, hence the name Seven Samurai,
Mm,
go to this village. They don't get paid anything. They get fed a little bit of rice. They protect the village from the bandits.
yep.
And along the way, the villagers tend to better understand the samurai. The samurai, now, since they're protecting the village, they become samurai again. The samurai better understand the villagers who, in feudal Japan, were considered a lower class. The samurai ultimately defeat the bandits. Some of the samurai die, and then the samurai are again unemployed. So they are Ronin again. They're masterless, and they move on.
Yep.
And the villagers are now happy, and their village is protected, and they have their lives back.
Yes. Yes.
Seems pretty simple, doesn't it?
It is. And quite often the best stories are simple. But it's how they're told and how they're filmed. And like you said, this film was directed exceptionally well, and you feel like you're right there in the village. You're there with these samurai. Like the way the scenes are shot and set, it's like you're kind of sitting in the room with them. And I was just really engrossed, really, from start to finish. And can you recall how, when and how you first saw this film, and how did it come into your life?
Yeah. So the film was made in 1956. I wasn't born until 1960, or it was released in 1956. So I wasn't a first release. And of course, I hadn't been into Japan at that time either. I wasn't to Japan until years later. It was because I got involved in the movie industry. And as an actor, aspiring director, I did direct some things. You always talk with your peers, your colleagues, about what can you pay a homage to? What can you steal from? What is really good that you can learn from? And everyone kept talking about this film. And I finally said, okay, I'm going to go watch it. I believe the first time I saw it was on a Criterion Laserdisc. Again, some of your viewers won't even know what this is.
Nope.
But years ago, even before DVD, if you wanted something that was really high quality images, you got this 12-inch platter that looks like an LP, and you played it on a Laserdisc player. And there was commentary. But those discs probably cost, I think they were $100 a piece.
Oh yeah.
So they were really expensive compared to everything else. But you could also start and stop it. And I watched the movie many times. I probably saw it 10 times before I saw it in the theater.
Wow.
Because by the time I'm looking for it, it hadn't been in the theater in I don't know, probably 20 years.
Right.
Now, of course, since I've seen it on Laserdisc, it's been in the theater again. And as soon as if it comes out in the theater, I go watch it, even though I've seen it probably 30, 40 times.
Wow.
The movie is just that good.
Definitely.
And it's 3 hours long. So imagine how much time I've spent just watching the same movie over and over. But I really like it so much.
Yeah. It's a masterclass in many ways. And it is a long film. And I appreciated that at roughly halfway through it has an intermission where the word intermission comes on the screen, and it plays music for about 5 minutes. And I was just about to pause it at that point to go and make a coffee. And then the intermission came up, and then I Googled how long is the intermission, and it says it goes for 5 minutes. I'm like, perfect. Went downstairs, made a coffee, came back, and then the movie just continued. And then, it just really accelerated in terms of the stakes really increased after the intermission, I found, as they were preparing for this epic battle against the bandits. And
so let's get into the movie in a minute, but I like to set another part of the stage.
Okay, go for it.
At the time in Japan, a typical feature-length film had a budget of about $1.5 million US. I apologize, I can't convert to all the other currencies. But that was the typical budget for a feature-length film in Japan in the mid-50s. The budget for Seven Samurai was only $500,000.
Gosh, that's like nothing.
So they made that film on 1/3 of the typical budget for feature films, and this was an epic film. It wasn't just a couple guys in a bar. We've seen a lot of those movies. This was big expanses, big battle scenes, a lot of people involved. Filmed, I think, over the course of about 40 some days. So it was a big deal. And Kurosawa did it on 1/3 of the regular budget.
Amazing. Yeah. And obviously way ahead of his time, and obviously very influential on American films after that. And I think you mentioned to me in a previous conversation that the classic Western film, The Magnificent Seven, is essentially a reworking of Seven Samurai. Is that correct?
Yes.
Yeah.
So there's a producer named Arthur Sarkisian. He paid $250 to buy the rights to the script for Seven Samurai, and he remade it as The Magnificent Seven. And from my perspective, that movie is a piece of crap compared to the original.
Right. Well, I haven't
Now,
seen Magnificent Seven
recently,
yet, but I'll proceed with caution then.
well, don't bother.
Okay. All
Recently,
right.
the remake was remade with Denzel Washington, and the only reason that movie's good at all is because Denzel Washington's in it.
Oh, that's
But
right. I remember that.
it doesn't have the same story. They were
Mm,
very superficial in
mhm.
the story. The original has so much depth to it. That's what makes it such a great film.
Yeah.
But instead, they just took a couple battle scenes and said, "Okay, this is what's going on.
Yeah.
Let's get a bunch of gunfighters."
Yep.
It's just not the same.
It's not the same, like, yeah,
Not
it's
the same.
there's a difference between paying respect to a story or a formula and then trying to basically emulate it. And you can't emulate films like that. Like it's best to be just left alone and
Yeah.
let it inspire you, I guess, as a filmmaker and a director, but to try and, reinvent it or change it, it just, you're not I don't think they're doing themselves any favors really, which is probably why it didn't turn out so great. But what I
Let's
found
take a quick
interesting.
left. I like to take a quick left turn.
Okay.
You may have heard of a series of movies called Star Wars.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, so the first Star Wars episode, was it episode 4? The first
Yes.
Star Wars episode is actually based on another Kurosawa film called Hidden Fortress.
Oh, I didn't know that. Okay.
Yep, and George Lucas admits
Ah,
that he absolutely was a homage on Hidden Fortress. It's
mm,
really what Star Wars is based on.
interesting.
So,
Okay.
so here's a guy who took a good film. It was good. It wasn't great. Hidden Fortress was good. So Lucas takes a good Kurosawa film and pays real homage to it and
Mm,
makes an entire franchise out of doing it justice.
yeah, that's interesting. Yeah, because we've spoken about Star Wars on this podcast before, and I think it came up in conversation that Star Wars also uses the formula established in The Lord of the Rings by J.R. Tolkien, which was obviously published as a novel in the 50s, I believe, and really kind of created the art of the trilogy and the hero's journey and all of that sort of stuff. And then Star Wars, a lot of people say, is like Lord of the Rings in space. And then eventually we saw the Lord of the Rings films in
Yeah.
2001, and that was like the Star Wars of that generation. And yeah, it's a lot of those
Right.
familiar arcs and storytelling
Right.
techniques. You see them across lots of different movies, don't you?
Depending how nerdy you want to get, there's a guy named Georges Polti who, in the late 1800s, if I remember correctly, published a book called The 36 Dramatic Stories. His
Okay.
argument was there's only 36 stories.
Mm,
And every time we tell a story, it is just some version of those 36 stories. You
36. Okay.
mentioned Hero's Journey. Well, that's Joseph Campbell, 1949, if I remember correctly. Maybe it's
Mhm.
48, 49. Hero of a Thousand Faces, that's where the term Hero's Journey comes from.
That's
So
right. Yeah.
everybody's using essentially the same source material.
Yep.
Boy meets girl, boy loses girl, whatever.
Yep.
But it's the way they tell it that makes the difference. You
That's
can
right.
tell the same basic story, but that doesn't mean you're going to have a classic epic film like Seven Samurai, or you talk about Wizard of Oz, 1939, and it's, I don't know what it's by you, but in the States, it's every Thanksgiving, it's on television.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
the movie's been running for 80 some years.
Still going strong, isn't it?
Talk
Yeah.
about a classic film,
Yeah.
but it's a on its very basic level, it's just, a gal who accidentally kills somebody and meets a bunch of strangers to kill again. Oh, wait a minute. No. Well, okay, that is what Wizard of Oz is about, but that's
Yep.
not what they publicized.
No, of course not. But that's the kind of the what's beneath all the
But that's the
layers.
storyline.
Yeah, it's fascinating, isn't it? Like the more movies you watch
Yeah.
and the more you talk about it, you see these patterns, and then you can go and watch other films and see it show up there again, and it's like, oh,
Yeah.
now I get it. And this is why so many of these films are so appealing and stand the test of time, like Seven Samurai, because it captures those storytelling frameworks that speak to us, and yeah, this film,
Right.
like you said, it's got so much depth to it. Each of the samurais is a well-established character with their own story and agenda, and
Yeah.
all the stuff going on, and how it all comes together at the end in this rousing battle scene, which was, oh, that just blew my mind. Like with the horses running through and the rain, and eventually the mud
Right.
coming up, and they're still fighting, and it's just you can't take your eyes off the screen. It was just so well done. Yeah, I was
Unlike
very
most other
impressed.
battle movies,
Mm,
it's not clean, it's not nice. It's a real dirty down, drag out battle. Let's
was
get into the movie. I love talking about this film, about
absolutely.
why I think it's so good.
Yes, that was my next
You
question. Go for it. Yeah.
okay, you mentioned the hero's journey. The typical hero's journey is you have this reluctant hero who has a call to action. He doesn't want to do it, or she doesn't want to do it, but she's called into action, goes through a bunch of trials, and eventually ends up on top. If you would draw it out linearly, there
Mm,
would be what looks like a roller coaster in a straight line. You start at the bottom, you have all these troubles, you get higher, you get to
yeah.
the aha moment, and life is good. If you draw out the same thing for Seven Samurai, you would have to draw it in a circle. In the
Mm,
beginning of the movie, you have a couple of unemployed samurai, the Ronin. So they're homeless, they don't have a job. At the end of the movie, the same two, now Ronin again, no longer have a job,
mm,
they're homeless. The
yes.
movie starts and ends in the same place.
Yep.
Depending on which version you saw, there's different translations of the line, but I believe the line is something like, again we win, again we lose.
Yes.
They won the battle against the bandit,
Hmm.
but they're again masterless
Yep.
and homeless.
Yes.
So they're
The
back in the
peasants were
same
the true
place.
winners, weren't they? Yeah.
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 So it's a circular construction. It builds, it builds, it builds, but they end up back in the same place where most movies are linear. Seven Samurai is circular, and that
Mm,
to me is one of the best things about it. If you geek out on stories like I do,
yep.
it is great in that, okay, here we are. Now there's a whole bunch of other themes. The samurai class were the higher class, the farmers were the lower class, and
Yep.
they didn't get along. But throughout the film, they got to understand each other.
Mm, hmm.
And the way they got to understand each other is because of the Kikuchiyo character, the Toshiro Mifune character. He is a farmer, but he aspires to be a samurai.
Yep.
And he was able to understand and empathize with both, so he brought them together. So there's a
Yes.
lot of commentary that film makes.
Yep.
It's not necessarily supposed to be an educational film, but there's a lot to it
Oh yeah.
that you walk away, you feel something.
Mm,
One of my criteria for being an actor, and especially for watching film, is I want to meet people I haven't met before. I don't want to see the same two-dimensional flat villain that we see in every one of these villain movies. You examine the characters, all the characters within Seven Samurai, they're all three-dimensional.
oh,
They're people
absolutely.
that I've never met before. You've probably never met them before. So we're gaining insight into the human condition. And isn't that one of the reasons why we watch film?
Absolutely. It's really the main reason is to identify ourselves within the characters or learn
Yeah.
about people we don't understand through the characters. I think that's
Yeah.
what draws us to movies. Yeah. So yeah, you really hit the nail on the head there. And what surprised me about Seven Samurai was, the way the samurais were portrayed. Like you said, they're not samurais that serve a master. They're basically like drifters or ronin, as you said, and
Yeah.
kind of going
Yeah.
from
They are.
place to place. And it's like they get offered this mission, I suppose, or this job, and they
Mhm.
take it and they fully immerse themselves in this village and the people. And what surprised me was like how they were quite funny, these guys, like they would crack jokes, they would laugh at each other. Like after they killed a guy, they would sort of look at each other like all like, yeah, good job. Yeah. Like I really like that side of it, how they seem to be sort of relishing in what was going on, but also taking it very seriously as well and making it about
Mhm.
protecting this village and bringing peace back to the village. So yeah, very
Do you
three-dimensional
remember
characters.
do you
Yeah.
remember the fight scene early on where the samurai refuses to kill the guy who spit at him?
Yes. Yes.
Yeah. So you want to talk about honor.
Yes. Yep.
Yeah, it's like, hey, everybody knows that I won. There's no reason for me to actually have to kill you.
Yep.
Everybody knows that I won, and
Hmm.
now that you spit at me,
Mm.
I I'm mad, and that alone says I'm not going to kill you because I wouldn't do this just because I'm mad. I would only do it if it was honorable.
That's
So
right.
you walk away with, okay, here's a definition of honor. Where do you see that?
Yeah, you don't.
I mean, these are real people that give us the direction of how we should be living our lives.
That's right.
Not that that's why we always go to film, but it's nice to have something positive and refreshing about somebody who, 10 minutes later is going to brutally kill 27 bandits.
Yeah, but then
Because that was
just
still
part of
the
the job.
honorable thing to do.
That's
Yeah.
right. Yeah, the honor and all of that. And there's so many lessons in this film. Like when
Yeah.
they arrive at the village and they're sort of surveying the village and planning out how they're going to defend it and where all the entry points are. And it's like, it made me think of the book The Art of War. And it's like, even though that I believe is a Chinese book originally, if I'm mistaken.
And about 1,000 years earlier.
Exactly, yeah, but
Yeah.
you could see how there was elements there of warfare and planning and strategy happening, and then at the end of the day, it was just like it became this crazy frenetic battle, and you could see those last few bandits who were like, at first they were like leading the charge, and then the last few standing, it was just like it was survival, and it was because it got down to those last few, and they were selfish and greedy. That's why they lost, and that's why the samurai won. So I thought that was a great reflection of the power of the samurai philosophy and how that's what saved the people. Obviously, not every samurai made it to the end, but but the few that were left.
Sorry, I gave it away.
Yeah.
Yeah, and even the farmers mistreated the samurai.
They did. Yes. Yeah.
Yeah, they hid their daughters and they hid their food.
That's right. Yeah,
the samurai were honorable, so they did what they said they were going to do, even though they were being mistreated by the lower class.
Interesting.
So we see a lot of examples.
Yep. Yeah, that's right. It's kind of like the lower class putting the samurai up on this pedestal, like you have to come and save us. But once they were there, it was like we're now going to just sort of take you for granted and use you for our own survival. But they were able to rally up some of the villagers, mostly the men, to actually join in on the fighting. And they did pretty well. They got a few points on the board. So just so much to talk about with this film. Like I'm still, my mind is just swimming with things, and we could talk about it forever. But with two other films we want to talk about as well. Let's just lastly on the Seven Samurai.
Yes, but let's talk about Toshiro Mifune, the star actor of the film.
Go for it. Yeah.
So Mifune, at one point, maybe you remember the scene, he runs through a field and he dives through a split rail fence.
Mm-hmm.
Remember that?
Yes, vaguely, yes.
Imagine he was almost 6 foot tall. He was very tall for Japanese. Imagine running through a field and just flowing like water through a fence. Most people would have to stop and bend down, and I know I would, or maybe jump over it, whatever. But it wouldn't be a fluid motion. And here's this guy who just like flows through this fence as he's running. He never breaks character. This is why I recommended you watch the film without reading the subtitles, because I think everything you need to know, they express it. You don't even have to see the words to understand what's going on.
Yeah.
And here's this guy who starts as a farmer's son and ends up being probably the most honorable samurai of the team. So his personal journey over the couple hours of the film is immense, which is another reason we watch film, is so we can see the journey people go through. And this one particular guy, the hero, goes through a great journey, and he's just so expressive. The reason I think he's the best actor who's ever lived is I've probably seen, 12 or 14 movies he's been in.
Okay.
And he plays this honorable farmer samurai in one film. Then the next film, he plays a drunken modern day police detective.
Interesting.
Completely different character, same actor, completely different character, just reinforces how wonderful of an actor he is.
Wow.
You watch people like I mentioned Denzel Washington, who I think is a fabulous actor, but Denzel's Denzel. He's Denzel.
Yes.
He may play a really tough guy in the movie that just came out.
Oh, The Equalizer.
The Equalizer. So he plays a really tough guy in Equalizer, but he's still Denzel.
Yes. Yes.
he plays the blind guy in Jeremiah's whatever. Right now I can't remember the name of the films, but it's still Denzel. You look at Toshiro Mifune, and you have to think hard to go, that's Mifune, isn't it?
Mm,
Because he's just so good at embodying
yes.
the characters.
Yeah.
All right, you want to move on. What else you want to talk about?
Oh, well, like I said, I mean, there's so much to unpack about Seven Samurai, and I think
Yes.
your passion for it just is coming off the screen, and I think, and it's definitely a film I'm very grateful for having the opportunity to watch, and I will rewatch it several more times and go back, and I'll take your advice and watch it without the subtitles, and now that I sort of know how it goes and where it goes, I can see the characters' motivations from a different point of view and everything. So yeah, top choice, and everyone watching here, I think is if they haven't seen Seven Samurai before, I'm sure they'll be pretty keen to go watch it now. I just think
if you just want to be entertained, it's a great
enthusiasm.
movie. If you want to
Oh,
learn how to
absolutely.
make movies, it is a master's degree in filmmaking in one movie.
Mm,
Just analyze it, take it apart, look at it, look at the story construction, look at the direction.
yep.
You figure out that, you can make a film.
Yeah, you've got it.
Absolutely.
Yeah, you've summarized it perfectly. Yeah, fantastic. Well, for your next film, if we can roll along, Bob, and this is obviously something very different. And the story behind this, as you'll share with us, I'm sure, is the first film you saw on your own at the cinema, I believe. So
Yes.
very profound in that way. So yeah, let's talk about this next film, and what is it, and tell us about that first experience of viewing it.
So there was a movie released in 1969 called Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid.
Raindrops keep falling on my head.
Well, that ought to do it.
And just like the guy whose feet are too big for his bed,
Think you used enough dynamite there, Butch?
nothing seems to fit those
This is a robbery. Esto es un robo.
raindrops are falling on my head. They keep falling.
Robert Redford, Paul Newman. I think they did a couple of movies together. This was their first time they teamed up.
Yes.
It's a bunch of bandits, which is interesting. Is you could argue this is the other side of Seven Samurai.
Yeah,
Because here's a bunch of bandits.
Yep.
It's not a great film. It's a fun film. It's a love story. It's a shootout. There's some really funny lines in it. But for me, I think I was 9 years old when it came out.
Mm-hmm.
At the time, it was okay to go to the theater at 9 years old by yourself. I'm not sure that I would send kids to the movies by themselves today.
No.
But when I was 9, it was acceptable, or it was done anyway.
Yeah.
So I saw the film and I was enamored by all of this stuff up on the screen. Yeah, there was some kissing in it. That was okay. But there were shootouts, and there were horses, and there was funny people in it.
Yep.
So I probably saw Butch Cassidy, I think 7 times in the theater.
Wow. Yeah.
By the time I was, between 9 and 12 years old.
Right.
So that's really what got me really enamored about film.
Yeah, fantastic. And can I ask, did your parents allow you to go on your own, or did you sneak away and go see it on your own? What was the sort of story there?
The best I can remember, I'm the youngest of 4 kids.
Yep.
And by the time my parents had me, I think they were just done being parents. If you look at family album, there's a whole bunch of pictures of my oldest brother.
Yep.
And my second oldest brother, there's some pictures. My next older brother, there's a few pictures. There's 1 or 2 pictures of me because they were done already.
Yeah.
So I mostly
relate.
did what I wanted.
I can relate. I'm one of 5. I've got 3 sisters above me. Then it's me, and then a younger sister. And my younger sister and I were very much sort of like out in the backyard all day.
Yeah.
Came in when it was dark. Sort of in a lot of ways kind of left to our own devices, and so I get what you mean. Yeah.
Yeah, so I just did.
Yeah.
It's
Off
probably
you
why I still have the weird attitude today. So I just went. I mean, and the movie probably cost $1 or something. My mother probably gave me money to go. Hey, get out of my hair, go see the movie.
Sure. Yeah.
But
Fantastic. And so was each time you went was like to the same theater, like your local theater in town?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm sure I walked. We lived about, I don't know if your neighborhood has blocks. Where I grew up, we had blocks. They're about, I don't know, 1,000 meters long,
Right.
something like that.
Yep.
So it was about an 8-block walk to the local theater.
Wow.
And again, when I grew up, I don't think you'd let kids do it today. You don't let them out of your sight. But when I grew up, as a boy especially, if like you want to walk the 8 blocks to the mall to go to the theater, it was no big deal.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, it was a different.
So I would either
time.
walk. Yeah, I mean, I probably even rode my bike and didn't bother lock up my bike either. You didn't have to do that. You know, I lived in not a tiny town, but it was a relatively small town. You know, today you wouldn't do those things, but you know, we're talking about 50 some years ago.
It's a different world, isn't it? Yeah.
Different world.
And seeing it at such a young age at the cinema, like, is there a principal memory of seeing it for the first time, or those first few times on, you know, on the big screen? Like, what was it about that film that just sort of grabbed you the most, do you reckon?
Well, if you're familiar with the film, it's 2 bank robbers. So these are really cool guys. They're handsome guys. They always have the gals. They shoot them up. They never get shot. They do what they want. They're riding horses. So, you know, what 9, 10-year-old boy doesn't like the idea of, you know, playing cops and robbers, but being the robber and getting away with it?
Absolutely. It's the stuff of boyhood dreams, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, I suppose if I started watching Mary Poppins or something, I'd have a whole different view of film. But this was, you know, this is fun. This is action. This is adrenaline. This is, hey, really cool. And every once in a while, and I can't remember the gal's name at the moment, but, you know, Paul Newman would kiss that gal. She's a famous actress. I can't even remember her name, but Paul Newman, I remember.
Right. That's all right. Yeah, I'm sure someone watching this can pop it in the comments below for us as they're watching it. So.
Her character's name was Adam Place, but I can't remember her real name.
Okay. No
lovely gal.
Yeah.
Okay, but I'm 9. I don't care about kissing the gal. It's the horses and the guns, and you know, let's go running around Bolivia and robbing banks.
Absolutely. Was it the first Western film you saw that you can recall?
That I remember of grown-up movies, yes. I think my parents took me to a drive-in when I was younger, and I remember the movie, I think it had Raquel Welch in it or something. But other than that, I watched things on television. So yeah, there's Westerns on TV, but it wasn't the same as, you know, TV, the viewing angle is here. On the film, the viewing angles like this, so that, you know, people are larger than life, not smaller than life. They're larger than life, big horses, big guns, big shootouts. So everything was just so large and enamoring. And I'm sure I sat either in the front row or very near the front row. So things are just huge. Yeah, it's just the whole surround experience.
It just sort of overwhelms you, doesn't it? Yeah.
Yeah, and that may be why people may not be as enamored with movies today, because even if you have a, you know, 100-inch television, someone in a close-up is maybe still just life-size. But when I grew up, the movie screens were probably 12 foot high and 20 feet wide. Yeah. So, you know, you do a bang-in close-up, these people are larger than life. It takes over your whole world.
Absolutely.
Not just this little slice of it.
For sure, yeah, and something that's lost today in today's, you know, streaming and watching films on phones and iPads and laptops, and it's convenient, sure, but there's still nothing better than going into a cinema, in a dark cinema, the big screen, and just being overwhelmed by this story and get drawn into the world. And I think you can't beat that, you know. And it was as true then as it is now, right? You know, and if it's the right movie, it'll pull people back into the cinema, but it does have a bit of a tough battle on its hands these days, competing with streaming and TV and phones and all that stuff. But for me personally, and I'm sure you're the same, it's about getting back to the theater, isn't it?
Let me give you a comparison. It may have been 2001. My nephew graduated high school, so I flew to see his graduation. So he's a teenager. Yep. And he wanted to go see some dumb kung fu movie called Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon.
Okay. Yeah.
Now, I hadn't seen it, didn't know anything about it. It had just come out. So I said, hey, you want to go to the movies? I love the movies. Let's go to a real movie theater. Yep. So we went to a movie theater in his town, and there was probably, I don't know, 300 or 400 teenagers in this movie theater watching this kung fu ballet. hopefully you've seen Crouching Tiger.
I have, yes.
It was so captivating, but when you gasp, it wasn't just you gasping, it was 300 other teenagers gasping.
Yeah, yeah.
That enhanced the experience.
Mm-hmm.
I knew that movie was going to be a smash hit.
Yep.
When 300, whatever it was, teenagers kept their mouths shut and watched the film.
Yep. That's
if
impressive.
it could keep them quiet during a film, I knew it was going to be a smash hit. And that's another film that I've probably seen, I don't know, 6 or 7 times, because again, it's a brilliant filmmaking.
Absolutely, absolutely, yeah, and was definitely got the acknowledgement it deserved when it came out. I think it was nominated for a bunch of Oscars and won Best Foreign Film, and yeah, it's brilliant. And and I was curious to ask, with your background in film and television, coming back to Butch Cassidy, would you say that was sort of planted the seeds in your mind to become an actor?
Absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely, yeah.
Yeah.
So would you say
When
there
I
was
saw
an experience? Was there an acting experience for you that was close to that viewing experience? Like, did you do like a Western or a shootout scene?
No. I was never that good. I played a hitman, so I had fun, pushing people around. I was in an episode of Swamp Thing, the TV series.
Oh, right.
And I was the bodyguard for a drug lord. So all dressed up. And some gal tried to attack the drug lord, so I took my hand and pushed her, but she was on a harness. Hi.
That's my daughter. Yes.
Your daughter just walked in. So the actress was on a harness, so I gave her a little push, and she flew across the set. So those are fun things to do as an actor.
Yep.
But I admit I'm not the star material. I didn't do any of the big epics. I had fun. I was in decent shows, but yeah.
Hey, well, you did your part. Like you said, everyone on the set in the film plays a crucial part. And I'm now having a little project is to go and find all these shows you're in and watch them and be like, hey, there's Bob. I know Bob. And show that off to my friends and stuff. So I think they'll be quite impressed.
My wife was an extra in a TV show that I was the co-star of.
Oh, right.
So my wife was out for the weekend in LA, so the director put her in the show. So all our friends came over to watch the show. Now my wife's on for maybe 10 seconds walking across the street in the TV show. Everyone's cheering for her. And when she was done, they all got up to leave. I go, where are you going? I'm the co-star of the show. They go, we've seen you a bunch of times. Who cares?
She stole your thunder. Yeah.
Yeah.
And is that how you met?
Right. So no. We met years before that. Just I was hired to film for a week. Typically, TV shows, hour-long dramatic TV shows, film for somewhere between 7 and 8 days.
Right.
So if I'm cast, I'm often there for somewhere between 4 and 8 days.
Right.
So I think I was supposed to film Monday through Friday. The director was a friend of mine, and he said, bring your wife along. We hung out together for the weekend.
Nice.
And I think we were at dinner Sunday night, and the director said, well, if you stay for tomorrow, we'll put you in the show. You'll just be an extra. You'll just walk in the background, but at least you'll be in the show. So she said, sure, why not?
Excellent.
So, they dressed her up. This was a period piece. It was set in the 1870s.
Ooh.
So they put in a hoop skirt and the whole thing, all the makeup. Yep. So, there she was. The star goes this way. She walks this way. Yay. 10 seconds maybe.
That's cool.
But it was
a very
a big
positive
deal
experience.
for her.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Positive experience.
But nobody cared about watching me again because they've seen me before. Who cares about you?
You're part of the furniture by this point. Yeah.
Yeah.
So Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid, classic, well-known film. But like you said, it was more about your experience of going to the movies, seeing these larger-than-life characters on the big screen and seeing it on your own. And I remember seeing the first film I saw on my own was actually the remake of Psycho. Because Psycho, the original, is my favorite film of all time. And out of obligation, I went and saw the remake, which was terrible. No one else wanted to go and see it, so I went and saw it by myself. I was like, I think 16 or something like that, so a little bit older. But these days, I quite often go to the movies by myself, and it's fine. I tend to watch movies alone, and certain films I've seen several times. I think Independence Day from 1996 I saw 4 or 5 times at the cinema as well. So yeah, similar kind of experience, just like, wow, this huge epic on a screen, and I was just blown away by it, so those are the stories, the movies we remember. It's the experience of seeing it, isn't it? Yeah. So
You imagine seeing the mothership on Independence Day on a little phone? So the mothership's about this big. It's
no.
like, well, let's just knock it out of the way. What kind of a threat is that?
What's the point? Absolutely. What's the point? Yeah. Fantastic. All right, Bob. Well, this has been such a great chat, and we do have one more film we need to talk about, but not in the way that people
we need
might
to talk
expect.
about a part of one more film.
That's right. So not in the way that people are accustomed to on this episode, which is fine because you're the star of the show here. This is your favorite scene from a film. Everyone's going to know this film, but yeah, take it away. You might just want to mention the film briefly. I know you want to talk about the scene itself. So what is that film we're going to talk about?
So there's a brilliant scene in a terrible film. The terrible film is Jaws.
There is a creature alive today who has survived millions of years of evolution without change, without passion, and without logic. It lives to kill. A mindless eating machine. It will attack and devour anything. It is as if God created the devil and gave him jaws.
I know it's a phenomenon, but it's a terrible film. But there's one particular scene, and if you've seen Jaws, you probably know what it is.
Mm-hmm.
It's the 3 R's. So Roy Scheider, Robert Shaw, and Richard Dreyfuss. The chief, Quint, and Hooper are on the boat on Orca before the shark actually attacks.
Yep.
And they're drinking, they're singing, they're swapping stories, and that's why it's such a good scene, because we're finally getting the backstory of these characters. We have no idea really where they came from. Why is a sheriff who is afraid of the water, the police chief or sheriff, whatever he is, in an island city? So something goes on. So here's the 3 guys. They're telling stories about each other. It's funny, then it gets to be really serious. To me, one of the best parts, again, you have to see the movie. It's kind of a small touch. The Roy Scheider character, the chief, he's listening to the Robert Shaw character, Quint, tell the story about the Indianapolis.
Yep. And
then about Richard Dreyfuss telling a story about Mary Ellen Moffat. And Roy Scheider just grabs his stomach. There's some backstory there, but they never reveal what it was. I always assumed he got shot. And that's why he left being a New York City cop, that he probably got shot in the stomach, and that's why he left.
Yep.
But he never says anything. Yeah. With Quint, he tells the story of the Indianapolis, and the story is mostly made up, but it's good for the movie. Richard Dreyfuss tells a story about Mary Ellen Moffat. He points to his chest and goes, "Here, my biggest scar is right here." What? He goes, "Mary Ellen Moffat, she broke my heart." It's hilarious. And then Quint tells a story about the Indianapolis, so all the people went in the water and the shark attacks. So that's really serious. So that whole scene comes full circle.
Yep.
So it's funny, it's poignant, it's really deep, it gives you a backstory, and then the shark hits the first time, and that's the end of that scene, and you go on to the next one.
That's right.
If Jaws is on TV and I happen to watch by the TV, if we haven't gotten to that scene yet, I will stop and watch the movie until that scene is over, and then I'm done. I don't care.
Yep.
But to me, that scene is so well made.
Yep.
From a filmmaking standpoint, from an acting standpoint, it's so well made that I will watch that scene over and over and over. The other hour and a half in the movie, I could care less.
Yeah. No, fair call. And that scene, it's sort of probably the most crucial scene in the film, because it's like it's about these 3 guys coming together. What's brought them together is this shark that's terrorizing this island community, and they're on the boat, and you sort of see how each of them functions in that environment. Hooper being a marine biologist who's used to being on boats in the waters, just getting drunk and having a great time. The sheriff is sort of just still standing back. He's not quite sure what to make of these guys. You know, is he as manly as them or as smart as them? And then you've got Quint laying down this story about his encounter with sharks, and you know this is why he hunts sharks now. He's got like this vendetta against all sharks, and it's just the way that Robert Shaw tells that story it's unforgettable, isn't it? Yeah. So kind of from like an acting point of view, would you say that's sort of the scene every aspiring actor needs to watch to sort of get the
Robert Shaw's performance telling the story of Indianapolis, you were there in the water with him.
Yes.
Brilliant acting. Roy Scheider, it was brilliant acting without him saying a word of just grabbing his stomach. You know, you knew something. The whole backstory was in one hand move holding his stomach, but he didn't even say a word. Again, brilliant acting. And Richard Dreyfuss, he was just being a goof. You know, he wasn't there because he was there interested from the science standpoint.
Yep.
Roy Scheider character was there. He's afraid of the water, but it's his honor, his duty to be there. But from a filmmaking and acting standpoint, all three of them, completely different characters, completely different styles. It was just brilliant acting, brilliant scenes.
Yep.
From my perspective, I don't know, I've never met Spielberg, but I would bet that the movie was allowed to continue even though they were way over budget. They were 6 months behind because somebody saw that scene and said, if this is what you're going to deliver to us, then keep going.
Absolutely. And it was very much a sample of what was to come for him in later years as a director, and being able to replicate performances like that and scenes like that. And I think Jaws was maybe his third film or something like that. He was very early in his career, and obviously was showing some, you know, considerable talent. He was only like 27 or 28, I think, when he made it. So really impressive. And I can just imagine him being behind the camera, filming this scene and just being like, oh my God, this actor, Robert Shaw, who I've dreamed of working with, is delivering this scene in a way I never could have imagined, that just elevated that film. Because really, Jaws it's kind of two films in one. It's about the shark picking people off, and then it's three men versus the shark out at sea. And that's my favorite part of the film, is that second half when they're trying to hunt the shark. And Quint's story really is foreshadowing his demise in a lot of ways. And then eventually the shark gets him. So it's like, it's kind of very like poetic in that way. It's like, as tough as he was and as fearless as he was, eventually that shark got him and pulled him under the water, in a very graphic scene as well.
Yeah, unfortunately that was just so unreal. You know, Richard Dreyfuss just hangs out in the water for an hour and doesn't know what's going on, and suddenly just comes up and you know, Quint, no, didn't make it. You know, I ridicule that movie till the day I die.
Yeah.
But from a filmmaking standpoint, they're basically in the saloon of the boat. It's not a very big boat. So just imagine the interplay of where the cameras had to be as they filmed it from different directions, different angles. Very tight, constrained space. So I don't know how many days they spent filming that scene, but those actors had to repeat those performances over and over and over. So they would feed the person on camera, so the people on, you know, the actor on camera would respond appropriately.
Yes.
I'm sure that was a very tough scene. Some people call it a sequence, very tough scene to film because of the very tight location.
Yes.
And the mostly monologues that people were delivering, soliloquies, I suppose. Robert Shaw's was soliloquy. It's just very impressive.
Yes.
But the rest of the movie just is junk.
And look, it's not for everyone. I get that, you know, and I can see your perspective, absolutely. Personally, I love Jaws, but you know, it's not about me, it's about you today. But I agree with you. That scene is just like, it's such a standout scene, and I look forward to when that scene comes up in the film. And it's not a showy scene. It's not showing off like, hey, look at this great acting here. It just sort of creeps up on you. And then by that point, you're like, God, you're just so drawn into what's going to happen to these three guys, you know? And like you said, the way that Robert Shaw describes his experience as that character in the water, you feel like God, just how he talks about it, you can picture yourself being in that water with all those, sailors, and then the sharks come along, and it's, oh God, that's like worst case scenario you can ever imagine, where you've got no control whatsoever. And yeah, and it's horrific how he describes it, and it would have been a horrific situation to be in. I can only imagine.
Robert Shaw did real acting in that. Imagine if the nightly news, 11 o'clock news, told the story of the Indianapolis. It would be like you giving a court deposition.
Yep.
But Quint, Robert Shaw's character, he didn't retell the story. He relived the story. And that's why we were right there with him, because we were reliving it through him. And that's what made it that much more powerful than say, hey, let me tell you what happened over here. No, let me give you my first person account of it as we were going through it. That's what made it so impactful. And then, of course, the Richard Dreyfuss character was just being the goof, because he was a goof the entire movie. So he was the comic relief that made the depth of Robert Shaw's storytelling that much more poignant, because Richard Dreyfuss's perspective was just the goof that he was.
Yeah, that's right.
So, the low isn't as low unless the high is that much higher. It's the gap between the two that really make the difference.
You're right. Yeah.
So,
and you've just reminded me that the lead up to this great scene you're talking about is they're comparing wounds and scars on their body. And it's
that's the whole scene.
That's right.
It's about 5 minutes long. That's all of it together. And that's why Roy Scheider grabbed his stomach, because they were comparing wounds. And that's why, and I double checked if they ever explain, and I don't see any place they've ever explained why he grabbed his stomach, but I'm just assuming from the character that he was telling us what happened without actually telling us.
Yes.
So, I mean, that whole sequence, the whole scene was just a bunch of guys having fun. Then it gets way more serious. We break the tension. So now we're laughing at Hooper, and then slam, the shark hits.
That's right. Yeah.
That's the roller coaster of storytelling, very clearly laid out. But unlike Seven Samurai, Jaws starts in one place, does this roller coaster and ends. It's not circular. People are different. We didn't really learn anything. We met some new people, but it's just not the same level of storytelling between those two films.
No, definitely not. No, and I guess Jaws' legacy is it really pioneered the summer blockbuster, where you very much have this sort of climatic scene at the end, and then it's happy days after that. And and a lot of blockbusters owe their sort of success to that formula. So but just coming back to that scene again, it's haunting just listening to that story. And you can easily find, with the power of the internet these days and YouTube, you can jump on and just watch that clip alone. You don't have to sort of watch the whole film. And it's been great talking about it. And just your passion for that scene and the other two films you've talked about has really come across, Bob, and it's been fantastic to hear it from your point of view and hear your stories and your take on these films. And it's great, which is what this show is all about. And just to sort of like wrap up this conversation, I mean, I wish we could go on forever, but eventually, all good things come to an end. But any other honorable mentions of movies that you love or that you were maybe thinking of talking about? What else would you recommend?
An American President with him. I guess my brain's not functioning. Michael Douglas.
Oh yes,
plays the president.
The 90s. Yes, the American president.
Right? So another fun movie that has some very interesting parts in it. One of the things is, Michael Douglas's character tries to make a differentiation between he's the most powerful politician in the world, not literally the most powerful man in the world. So it kind of gave us this background view of, well, there's a person and there's a politician that happens to be the president, and they're really two different people. So it's a very fun movie, very well performed.
Yes.
Another one that comes to mind is it The Bodyguard with
Kevin Costner and
Kevin Costner. Thank
Whitney
you,
Houston.
Whitney Houston.
Yeah, that's a good one.
another very interesting story arc. We get to know the Kevin Costner character as a Secret Service agent. You know, the only reason he wasn't there to stop Reagan getting shot because he was at his mother's funeral. You know, we're getting this really interesting backstory. He's fighting against the odds. You know, everybody's laughing at him until they really need him, and then suddenly, you know, he's the hero.
Yeah.
So these are just, again, I said this earlier, and then as I watch movies, because I want to meet people I haven't met before, and you know, things like The American President, The Bodyguard, these are examples of people we have not met before, and we get to spend time with them, getting insight into who they are, and that's what makes movies just so captivating, that we want to spend time with them.
That's right.
Even if we don't like them, even the bad villains, you know, you look at the Batman movies with the villains are also interesting. They're not flat characters. They're three-dimensional. They just happen to be villains. They just don't see themselves as villains.
Yep.
So we still get to spend time hanging out with them. Maybe we don't want to see them after the end of the movie, but we still are meeting new people.
Yeah.
That to me is why we go to movies, why we watch good television shows, is so we can meet people. I think my favorite Australian show is Cardinal. The doctor I thought was a really interesting character.
Yep.
I'm not sure why they didn't fire him years earlier, but it was a great example of a character that you want to spend time with him. You want to hang out with him. You know, what's going on in your world?
Yeah,
Where,
that's a really rare. That's a really good perspective to have on films, and it is. And the more well developed the character, and the better the actor, and the smarter the story, the more of that experience you're going to have. I think, because there's a lot of films out there with very two-dimensional characters, cliched plots, predictable storylines. It's like, yeah, that's good for switching off, maybe to kill a bit of time, have on in the background. But, you know, movies can have such an impact on you, like, you know, the films you've spoken about, for sure, that that's really why we go to the movies. And you can experience that to an extent with television, but that sort of plays by different rules a little bit. I think with movies, if you can achieve that in a 2-3 hour film in one go, because with a movie, you only get one chance to tell the story, right? It's not like a TV show that can go on and on and on forever, like Lost or something like that. But yeah, I think being able to achieve that in a film is pretty remarkable. So it's a really good way to look at it. Yeah.
That's my perspective on film. Other people may go, hey, I just want to be fun and escape for a while. And that's great if you get it. There are movies like that. Beautiful. That's why they make chocolate, vanilla, and 37 other flavors of ice cream. Because we're not all the same. It's just my take on film and why I got involved and why I watch what I watch.
Fantastic. Yeah. And once again, just your passion and enthusiasm for that, it has been great to see, and it's, you know, resulted in this fantastic conversation we've had. I've really enjoyed it. And and just sort of my last question to pick your brains a little bit, Bob, is I'd like to ask most guests this question is the future of the movies. You know, what would you like to see more of, or where do you think movies might be headed? Do you have any thoughts on that?
That's a two-part question. What I want to see is character-driven drama like we've been talking about. But for the most part, that is television these days. And the films are more tentpole, big extravaganza, epic bonanzas, whatever. The Top Guns, you know, whatever you need to get people in the seats or get the eyeballs in front of the screen. So unfortunately, from my perspective, the character-driven drama has become more what a television show can become, where movies are more the action, and they're just not as deep as I would prefer them to be. But I'm not the typical moviegoer.
Right. Yeah. But no, I agree with you, and there's a similar point has been made in other episodes as well, where we feel like a lot of people agree that movies need to sort of return to their roots a little bit, go back to sort of the basics that made movies what they are in the first place, you know. And but who knows, you know, sometimes it's a matter of one film will come along and change everything, you know. And what reminds me of that is in, you know, 1999, which was a great year for movies, you had like The Matrix came out of nowhere and changed how movies were made, special effects. It blew us away and like what was possible. and that then created this whole like slew of imitations, and which weren't very good. But it changed the trajectory of action and science fiction and special effects films. So maybe, you know, hopefully another film will come along that will just get people like falling in love with movies, or being like, I didn't know we could do this with movies, you know. Or it might just be it happens over time, you know, where eventually the audience is kind of getting tired of these things, and sort of the right people are listening, and they're like, okay, we need to go back to what's worked before. And yeah, who knows? But we can always go back to these older movies if nothing new cuts it anymore. We can just go back to the old classics whenever we want, which is the beauty of movies. But
That's right.
yeah, well, we could talk forever, Bob. But unfortunately, we will have to wrap it up here. But again, thank you so much for being on My Movie Story. This has been a real
My
privilege
pleasure.
having yourself on here with your stories and your very good insights into film and filmmaking. And anyone who's watching this, I'm sure is very curious to go and check out these films, or maybe they'll look at Jaws in a whole different way now, like you've described. So thank you very much for being on My Movie Story. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you.